It's VHS Massacre Radio. I'm your host, Tom Seymour.
The other host, James Richardson.
And today we have a bunch of crazy stuff going on. You've seen a bunch of films.
I've seen a whole bunch of stuff. That's the benefit of being the end of the semester, is that I get a chance to go to all the movies that I want to see. One of the few good things about being an educator is that you get the summers off. And as soon as the summers are off, you can really almost kind of flip back into that mode that you used to be in when you were a kid, teenager.
Yep.
Summer's over, summer's here, and I can kind of do what I want. So that's cool.
So we get to hear your opinion on Dark Phoenix. What else?
Dark Phoenix, Godzilla, King of Monsters, and John Wick 3.
Nice.
Did you see John Wick yet?
Did not see the third one yet, but I'm excited to.
Man. Okay,
so I took a trip to Troma Studios, Troma Entertainment.
You saw my boy Lloyd?
Yes.
Okay.
To speak with Lloyd Kaufman, president of Troma Entertainment, head of the longest-running independent film studio in history. Because even Roger Corman sold his company and started a new one. So, so it was a very interesting trip.
I love Lloyd. Everything I've ever seen him in, he's irreverent. He knows his stuff, and he's been around a long time doing this. So
great guy, super smart. So basically, I was shooting the end of VHS Massacre 2, which you were a large part of.
Thank you.
You're pretty much the only other person working on it with me, except for Paul Polino helped me do a little camera work, who's a former student, but great guy.
I haven't seen Paul in a while. How's he doing?
He's doing all right. Yeah, he's doing okay. Yeah. So anyway, I go down to I have this 30-year-old VHS tape, and I thought it was funny that it said "return as soon as possible" on it. So that was my bit, was that I went down to Troma and I was like, Lloyd, I got this tape. It's really late. And I give it to Lloyd, and, of course, he's, super funny with his improv. He's like, because it was a Killer Condom tape. And he's like, that was our only one.
There was Killer Condom?
Yeah, the movie was called Killer Condom, yeah. See that tape that says Tromabilia right there?
Right.
In it, it actually says screener for Killer Condom, return as soon as possible, because those were made back in the day where the screeners were pretty valuable,
right?
So you're supposed to look at it and mail them back, figure out what you want to which ones you want to order or whatever. And so this one just has been floating around for 30 or 40 years, and so Lloyd joked. He's like, that was the only one we had. He's like, no wonder why that movie bombed. It was pretty funny. But I spoke with him about the state of independent film. As you know, a lot of the second VHS Massacre documentary revolves around what happened to independent film, the various things that have destroyed the profitability of independent film, and I really tried to dig in. Well, what can we do? Where is there room to succeed? And Lloyd at least did. He gave some interesting insights for a way that you could actually have some success in the independent film industry. So we're gonna play a clip, and then I guess we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing, because he's, like you said, he's one of the few people who's actually survived as long as he has in this field. And there's people who've been dropping off left and right. You and I have had discussions about this, and in terms of true artistry and filmmaking and stuff like that. I don't see how people are going to make money in the near future. So I'm interested in seeing if he's actually has a way of laying out possible routes of success for independent filmmakers. I'm interested in seeing what his take on it is.
Okay, so let's have a look.
Well, filmmaking is an art. And if you want to be an artist, then filmmaking might be a good profession for you. But if you're a lazy son of a bitch, then you aren't going to do very well in the making of cinema. And if you think you're going to be able to make a lot of money and be lazy, it ain't going to work either. If you're an artist, you might support yourself if you're a genuine artist, and if you've read some books, and if you have something to say, and if you really love cinema, you can probably make some kind of life out of it, but it's not going to pay your rent or feed you unless you become an ally of one of the vassals of one of these giant devil-worshipping international media conglomerates. It's been coming for a long time, but the independent movie industry is pretty much squashed. The word independent's been stolen. Fox Searchlight is called independent. Movies made by the sons and daughters of multi-million-dollar celebrities are called independent. And the word has been literally stolen away. So if you're going to be independent artists, you better be prepared to have a day job.
You don't foresee any sort of gold rush again, right? Like in regard to the various times where indies could kind of sneak in, like make some cash.
I think there is a gold rush, and I think there is ways to make a lot of money. Become an internet star. The Cinema Snob, he's got a great podcast. He's totally independent. He has his own company. The Cinema Snob makes enough money so he doesn't have to work at anything other than being the Cinema Snob. He's got at least one full-time employee. He's made 2 movies, and it's all from this independent thing. His source of income is something other than movie making. It's something other than the garbage that's on television. And I've been talking about this for a long time. A base of power. The base of power, right? Troma, we're out here in the middle of nowhere, but at least we have a little base of power. We've got 500,000 fans and a cult following, and we're here in the Long Island City where tourists come here, and we have kind of a brand, not much, but something.
So you build the brand, and then have all sorts of avenues to potentially pull in money.
Well, again, it depends. If you want to make movies, you're going to have a tough time. The cost of cinema has gone way down. Movie making has become democratized, but you can't eat off of it. You can't pay your rent unless you're in with one of the big shots, and then you get your wings clipped, and you have to become re-educated, right? So that if you want to be a real artist, you have to be prepared for those kinds of troubles.
It's a sobering, realistic perspective. He's saying it's kind of fucked, it's not going to be easy, but there is this idea of brand building,
But honestly, that goes back to what a lot of people are doing with social media.
For sure.
You have all these people right now who are building their individual brand, and by that they are creating a following. They are creating, as Lloyd mentioned, a power base. You've seen it with up and coming artists. You've seen it with well-established artists, like someone like Kevin Hart, for example, who has been building a social media brand for a while now, and as a result, people who generally are outside of even the comedy field kind of know who he is. Yeah. So when he does come up with projects and so forth, they're more likely to basically check it out.
Yeah. But I agree, and I would add on to that. There is this childlike, I'm going to blow up, I'm going to be a YouTube star. And usually when I see people go about it, they're taking the most superficial me angle, right? So they think that the angle is to be a sort of Kardashian. Either you're just talking about yourself all the time. You think your normal daily activity is interesting.
Right? No.
You think it's all about you, or maybe you're pretty, handsome or beautiful, and you think it's all about that, and that can work to some degree. But the point is, especially with Kevin Hart, this is like one of the most skilled comedians.
He's skilled, but the thing I find out about him is and this goes back to what Lloyd was saying. He works constantly.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
constantly. I'm talking about TV shows, movies, comedy specials, promoting other artists. It's like I sit back and I go, like, damn, when does this brother really sleep?
You don't know how hard people work, and you know, my wife is the same. Her brand, Food Beer, 72,000 followers. It is another full-time job. She works like a maniac to get what she has, and people don't realize. But the point is, she's offering something else. If people who just describe to her food Instagram have access to the newest, best restaurants in New York and can see how beautiful the food is, and it's actually a service. So I think that's my angle with this sort of thing. Like, in my documentary, I'm concentrating on how these multi-pronged things work towards film, right? So the examples I have are James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, who people love him investigating these old games. He makes fun of them, but he really loves them, and it's for them, they get to delve into this nostalgia. So his series is not "Look at me, I'm so cool." He's providing something for the public, and because that is so successful, he's able to make some of these independent films, raise a little money, and he's got these multi-pronged avenues, and also the other one was the Cinema Snob that Lloyd mentioned in that one. The sort of podcast, YouTube, Facebook. I mean, it is stuff that sounds obvious. Use social media, but it's not exactly obvious that people are doing it in a useful way, that people are going to actually get anything out of. You know what I mean?
I to a certain extent, I agree. You have to find a niche. You do have to provide a service. It's something that's going to benefit people more than just kind of like, here's who I am, here's who, what my life is like. Because let's be honest, most people are really not that interesting. And even a lot of the social media influencers who kind of do this, it kind of comes off as like very scripted. So it's really insincere to a certain extent.
Yeah, a lot of it, yeah.
I'm interested more to a certain extent of when how can I put it? Like, do you think it would be possible for someone like a Lloyd to basically be successful if he was starting today? And I think a large part of Lloyd's success is that when he started this stuff, there was nobody doing this type of content. At least not to.
This is what I will say. I would say if anyone else, Kevin Smith or Robert Rodriguez or Linkletter or any of these Soderbergh, any of these independent film giants who are now all part of the mainstream, if they were starting out today, I'd really have to question if they could ever make it. Lloyd, I actually think would fucking make it. I think if you're saying that Lloyd is like a 20-year-old in 2019,
right?
I think he would tear the same path. I don't know where the profitability would come from, but he's just too fucking smart. He's too irreverent, and he won't tire. I mean, he goes to several hundred conventions.
Yeah, that's great.
And he is more famous now than ever, actually.
And he's not a spring chicken.
No,
for someone. No, seriously. To see him at like half of the conventions that I've been to, and he's always there, always kind of upbeat. He's always on. Mm-hmm. And the guy got me probably about a good 20, 25 years easy.
Yeah.
And I get tired watching him just because he's always doing stuff. And it was funny that you mentioned Robert Rodriguez, because I feel like I'm a bad parent because my son had never seen El Mariachi. My son had never seen Desperado. So he comes to me the other night and he goes, I finally saw Desperado because I've been trying to get him to see it. He goes, that was pretty good.
Pretty awesome, yeah.
Right. So I said, well, did you watch El Mariachi first like I told you? And he was like, of course he didn't, because he's 18 and never listens to his father. But the point that I was kind of bringing up is that I told him kind of like the whole story. Like he was tripping out by the fact that the dude made that first movie for $9,000.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And
on 16mm film.
Yeah. And
that's where all the money is. Otherwise, it would have been like $1,000 movie.
And his he was able to graduate, get enough people interested in his work. Tarantino, for example, because they were at the Cannes Film Festival when it first premiered. He got enough people interested that he was able to leverage that into Desperado and future movies that he had done. I'm always amazed at that individual path, and I wonder if he was starting out now.
I think he would have serious problems. The thing is, you know, people throw around the term genius,
right?
Like Robert Rodriguez is an actual genius. Like some of the techniques and tactics he was using,
right,
and offering for free. Like, I mean, he'd have these deep insights into filmmaking, and he would just give them away.
Like the 10-minute film school, and stuff like all stuff like yeah.
But that being said, though, like, you know, the concept of people being able to make it, I think there's very few people who can make it in this environment. It's so competitive, and you see what's happening, and you know, Lloyd touches upon this. Just this sort of gross nepotism in the industry has always existed. You know, so
you talk about like getting in close with some of the people who are already in,
or the sons of people, getting in. That's just part of the industry. You know, it's like.
Did you see that meme? That was, of course, a meme. Did you see that meme for the guy who shot Chernobyl?
No. What did it say?
The thing that was, they had listed out a number of the movies that he had done over the years and how they had scored on Rotten Tomatoes. And Chernobyl was basically, right now it's like rated like 95% or something like that. But literally almost every other movie he had done previous to that, and there was like 8 or 9 of them. Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4, superhero movie, Maleficent.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, they were all like, 30%, 20%.
Right.
And the question then becomes is like, had he been anything other than, he had opportunities to fail upward that a lot of other creative filmmakers wouldn't have had the opportunity.
Hell no. Yeah, and I've seen that. It happens in real rare cases where, people are sort of they are sort of so connected in the honestly, like De Palma. Like
Brian De Palma?
De Palma's made some amazing films, right? Scarface, Carrie.
Do you think Scarface really holds up now?
It's more of it holds up in a sort of parody. It's kind of funny. Yeah, it's fun. It's Robert Loggia.
Yeah.
I'm Puerto Rican. I don't know Robert Loggia. Anyway,
I love Robert Loggia.
No, I know it's a lovable movie because it's so bizarre, but.
Her womb is so polluted she can't even have a little baby whip.
It's preposterous. But his first 3 or 4 movies were fucking garbage. You watched The Fury with like.
Oh, that was bad. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
What else? I'm totally drawing a blank on some of his other films. There's a couple of them.
Yeah, he was someone who was able to have multiple bombs, and then I think when he did Carrie, people were like, okay, but if his friends weren't Coppola, Spielberg, Lucas,
right.
All those guys, there's no fucking way.
What about Sofia Coppola? She
was good immediately, but she probably studied under her father she was always good. That's, to me, that's not nepotism. You're good. But I don't know. So the rottenness of the business aside, I learned some things. In working on VHS Massacre 2, I think I have a summary of things I learned about the business. Okay. So, 1, filmmaking is a dirty, rotten business. Okay. 2.
That's no offense, but that's kind of like...
It's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But I proved it. Anyway.
All right.
Indie film is suppressed because most people have no legal recourse partially because the current legal system is money-based. And that that has everything to do from a murder case to any sort of crime, is that if you have enough money,
you can fight it.
You can usually fight it, which is one of the reasons why the studio system is able to just totally not pay the independent filmmaker. So it's not that their main mission is to stamp out independent filmmakers. It's just that they can get away with not honoring contracts and not paying. And because, capitalism rules and there's really no legal recourse without you being a millionaire yourself, that's part of the reason independent film has died. Now that corruption, you could argue, has always been there, but in the 90s there was enough democratization in, let's say, the video store area. There's enough health and small business so that the independent filmmakers could
eke out a living.
Yeah, because it was the drive-ins, those were mom and pop owned, and it was the video stores, those were mom and pop owned, and when that went away, you basically just had the giants leveraging everything now.
But what about the people who basically say that the internet can level that playing field? That you have now a medium to distribute your content without interference from any of the large studios, the digital disruption.
Well, that is what you'd call like a gold rush. So if the video store area was a gold rush, then this things like YouTube and Amazon Prime are a gold rush, right? But the problem is Amazon keeps dropping the money earned per hour for independent films. So what happens is when they need the content, they'll pay decent, and when they've grown to be large enough, then they suppress the content. Like they liked having the content, but they didn't want to pay for it.
Right.
The problem is no one has any recourse when they decide to
change the plan.
Right. So Netflix did that. YouTube did that when they kicked out the partners, and now Amazon Prime did that. So basically, that goes back to the thing: no one has any recourse to do anything about it. So that's the next point. And also, that I did some statistics on the amount of people who make six figures off of YouTube. A few years ago, you had about the same odds as being in the NBA, but now that's probably even worse. So people cite these YouTube millionaires,
right.
and they are there, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens of them. But that's still really rare if you look at...
When you look at the overall number of people who are basically pushing content or have channels on YouTube and stuff like that, it is a small percentage who are millionaires. But this I think also goes back to some of the points that Lloyd made in terms of the finding specific niches, finding specific markets, and building that up as opposed to trying to do everything. Or like you said when you were talking about like the influencers or the people who are trying to build a brand by just talking about their lives. They're not talking about a specific niche, a specific topic that allows people to see the value that they get from listening to you.
Yeah, and then there is also this thing about chasing pop culture. Like there are people that just do movie reviews on just the latest movies that come out, and sometimes that works for a while, or just the latest pop news that comes out. You can do that, but that is not satisfying for a lot of creative filmmakers. They want to either do their own content, do something original, or at least if they're like the cinema snob would be talking about older movies that have come out, things like that. But there is this thing because when I was working at Black 20, if you're always chasing the latest pop trend, you are it's kind of soulless. You're essentially like the contemporary media. You're kind of just as bad as the mainstream media. So why would they pick you over watching some garbage on Entertainment Tonight or fucking CNN or TMZ,
There's a couple guys who I listen to. There's one who runs this channel called Emergency Awesome. And he's actually gotten up now to when I started following him when his following was probably like, under 100,000 subscribers. He is like close to 3 million, like slightly over 3 million now. And one of the reasons that I followed him is that he basically reviewed the type of shows, TV shows, movies that I'm particularly interested in. And that's all he kind of does.
Is that niche though? Probably, right?
Oh, it's real niche. Yeah. It's real niche. But the point I'm trying to break up with him was that by focusing on, he does focus on like the topic of the day, but because his insights, he's one of the few that does this type of stuff that I like to see.
Right.
And while there's a lot of other people who do that content, he's one of the ones also whose opinion I've actually fall more in line with. There's a lot of people who don't live and breathe this stuff. So they are chasing it because, okay, let me review Dark Phoenix because that's a movie that's, I wouldn't say hot, but it's basically a movie that's out right now that people may be interested in. But they don't know anything about how it ties into the comics, how it ties into the previous movies. Or so his knowledge of this becomes much more...
He's more of an expert.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that works. The other thing, fifth thing, you can work inside the industry. I work for CBS, NBC. Black 20 sold their shit to Fox, so technically some of my shit is now owned by Disney, I guess. I was talking to this guy, J.R. Bookwalter. He did a movie for Full Moon that Fox bought, so now Disney owns. And that's something that Lloyd talked. It's almost like 1984. I mean, there's so...
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's so few media companies, and the government and the media companies are so in bed together that
there's only a few outlets for you to basically take your stuff to.
But okay, so that is a thing. You can work inside the industry. You really can. You can try to go to the best college for communication and film, and you can try to get your internships. I volunteered at Public Access TV, and then I managed to get they call it a vacation relief editing job at CBS that was paying $9 an hour that no one wanted to do because you got called in the middle of the night to edit the news. I did that for a year and a half, then went full time. You can do this. It's hard, but those jobs pay in the industry. A lot of my friends work in the industry, and
doing editing,
doing producing. Half of what are you gonna say?
But aren't those positions kind of like, I don't know? Those are so. There's literally no security in any of those positions.
Nope, there's no security. The pay is solid. But
really?
It is, well, because they've been in it for so long.
Okay.
But they are, every couple of years, they're bouncing around. Maybe they're working for Sci-Fi Channel, then it's History Channel, then it's IGN, then it's CBS and NBC, then it's Lifetime. It's a hard life, but obviously we do it because we have a film industry, right? I mean, people do it.
But isn't this coming from all points in terms of the independent filmmaking industry being eaten alive because there's very few outlets for people to basically market, distribute their content? But on top of that, you have like the jobs. Everything is. None of these companies want to hire full-time employees to do a lot of this editing.
Sure.
This is all, work for hire type stuff.
Work for hire, make a $200 million movie. Declare bankruptcy, stiff your special effects people. How many times does that happen?
Constantly.
It happens all the time.
What was the name of that studio that basically won like special effects? They did the Life of Pi or whatever.
Oh yeah, they won the Academy Award and
they went bankrupt because they weren't paid or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like
they stiffed all the visual effects people.
Right.
Yeah. Again, this is what happens when you have a company that's you. Look into that closer, because I have a feeling what happens is when they start a film, that film becomes its own contained company. And so what will happen is if that company fails and gets bankrupt, it doesn't mean that the studio has to bear the brunt of that. Like, I don't know who put out that film, but I bet they didn't eat any of that. I think that's a thing that people do.
But all I'm saying is, for the next generation of filmmakers, you work in an area that is teaching people filmmaking. Mm-hmm. I work in an area that's basically discussing issues of new media and how to distribute your content digitally. I'm having a hard time recommending certain aspects of our field to up-and-coming artists.
Look, I will tell you something. This is going to be not sexy, but one of my friends I went to college with had a full-time gig for years in medical industry. He was doing medical videos. He was shooting, he was cutting, he had benefits.
What do you mean, like the people like
surgeries? He would shoot surgeries. Yeah.
Wow, that's hardcore.
I have another friend who's doing that now. It's different, but it's in the medical. He's doing medical industry videos. Other people doing industrial videos. There for a long time, this producer-editor thing was pretty profitable. Like a lot of my friends work for IGN, so there's shooter editors. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot of that. There's still those things that exist, even though some of them are kind of imploding. Like you have Vice, and you have things like BuzzFeed. You have things like all the magazines. Most magazines have digital video content. They're
smart ones, the ones who were able to put. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There are a lot of those jobs, but actually, what they're saying is those are peaking now. There was a lot of false numbers with viewership. They were basically just lying about viewership. Specifically, Vice lied. They were buying views, and I know BuzzFeed did, and Vox did, and so there's been a little bit of a devaluing of those companies, but there are the ones that do that, and there are paying positions, and that is it's part of the industry. Some people love that, going to cons, shooting, editing, interviewing people. That can be something. What are the parts of the industry that you wouldn't recommend to students?
Editing is a hard one. I mean, I did the statistics because we have to evaluate our programs every couple of years. And one of the things that we do when the program comes up for renewal, for evaluation, is you do industry research in terms of what are the areas within new media in particular that show significant growth over the next 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. Areas that showed negative growth one of them was editing. It was like a 4% growth rate, where the average growth rate is somewhere like around 16 is what they were anticipating. There was only two areas that showed significant growth areas. One was areas of cybersecurity, mobile application development, and web and application development. The areas that showed the negative growth or below what it would be average was editing. It was visual effects, motion graphics, some stuff in terms of multimedia design. I'd be interested in seeing what's going to happen with that, as some of that also gets lumped into mobile application development. Because you have a lot of like editors and so forth starting to edit different content for a different platform. Yeah. But more traditional editing, well, like movie, TV, and so forth, that's a rough field right now, son.
It is still one of the best ways to get in the industry. And you could say the same thing of writing. Writing's a tough industry.
Hell yeah.
Well, being an editor is a tough industry too. The problem is, most people think they're a good editor when they're not, and most people think they're a good writer when they're not. And the truth is, those are highly skilled positions, so they're difficult to get, but they're still one of the best ways into the industry. Almost everyone I know growing up with, how they paid their rent was they got in through editing. I have another friend who got in through writing. That's even harder. So as far as growth, I understand, like, you know, they're not handing these jobs out, but right. I think part of that comes from the industry not wanting to pay for that position, and content going to these even shorter formats, like Twitter. You know, Twitter I think had a 45-second limitation.
Twitter, Instagram was a minute.
A minute on Instagram, and so basically because the part of media is getting more superficial in itself, there's a dumbing down, and basically we're just all going along with it. But there are areas where it's not like that, like long format podcasts. Like some of those are 3 hours long, and people eat them up. And it's not like those are, you know...
You're talking about just purely audio podcasting or video?
Both. I mean, they do better on YouTube. They're better if they're chopped up. You know, they're better if someone has edited them. You know, found the best parts and posted them on YouTube. You know, but you know, people do listen to certain things in long format because partially people are starved for it to some degree because the media has gotten so shitty. You know, I mean, you know, listen to, you know, watch the Tonight Show. Listen to you want to fucking kill yourself when you hear one of those interviews. It's like 2 or 3 minutes long. They're talking about the stupidest shit they could possibly think of.
Screw you. Jimmy Kimmel is a genius. Jimmy Kimmel is a fucking genius.
Kimmel's one of the smarter ones for sure.
He is, but I don't know. I can't mess with none of them. Like Fallon. The only one I kind of like, who I actually think is a really good interviewer, and he's not on traditional media, is Stern. Have you ever listened to some of Howard Stern's interviews? Yeah, sure. He's an ass. Don't get me wrong.
But it helps. It can help to get a good interview. Mark Maron. It's not like Mark Maron's like. If you looked at some of his behavior before he hit 50, he was kind of an asshole.
I can't get. There's a lot of people who love him. I can't get into Maron.
Yeah, but he's I don't know what it is. He's a good agitator. He gets good. He gets good interviews out of people.
Like Joe Rogan, there's another one.
Yeah, Rogan too. Yeah, he can make it work. They're very good at, because those guys have spent decades like learning the craft of not boring people. And so when they have a guest on, they'll pop in whenever they need to. They'll goose up the interview whenever they need to. They're trying to hold the room for like 3 hours. There's only a few people who are really great at it, you know. Like, we're not that good at it. Maybe you're better than I am. You're more interesting than I am, but
not really. I just want to sleep and watch General Hospital for most of the day. You know? So
tell me about the shitty movies you watched.
There was only a couple of shitty movies, like Dark Phoenix. Let's start off with that.
Okay.
Because that's the one that everybody was waiting for. Especially coming off of the foot of Endgame, where you have Marvel's kind of like culmination of their cinematic universe. And Dark Phoenix, to a large extent, is the culmination of Fox/Marvel's cinematic universe, which is different than like the Captain America and Avengers movie. The X-Men series has been up and down throughout the entire run, and Dark Phoenix is, if you know anything about the comics, Dark Phoenix is a approximation of one of the most iconic Marvel comic books that was ever laid out, the story arcs that was ever laid out, the Dark Phoenix saga. Definitely one of the most famous X-Men sagas. And it's the second time that Fox has tried to do this. The first time was in X-Men, which was X3, X-Men Last Stand. They literally took a huge dump on the Dark Phoenix saga. Totally changed the story, totally changed the motivations, killed off characters left and right. X3, in my opinion, is probably the worst, or close to the worst, of the Marvel X-Men Fox productions. Dark Phoenix wasn't that. This new one with Sophie Turner, they have pretty much a brand new cast. Hugh Jackman isn't in it. Hugh was smart enough to say, you know what, I think I'm kind of done with this, and let me step away. He went out on Logan.
That's a good note to go out on.
Right. He's just like, let me go. So it wasn't the shit show that everyone had expected. But to be honest with you, it's just, there was almost like there was no life to it. You almost are not invested in any of the characters. So, you know, they did as well with the material as they could. Sophie Turner was not a bad Jean Grey. She's not a bad actress. She's actually gotten better over the years, especially the last couple of years with Game of Thrones. You know, but they don't really give her a whole lot of stuff to work with here, and you don't really care about her. Like, if she dies, she dies. Whatever. McAvoy, who's playing the younger version of Professor X, the younger Patrick Stewart part that he had done on. McAvoy is an excellent actor also. So is Fassbinder, who plays Magneto. Once again, though, they do as much with the part as they can. The story's been chopped up. It's kind of Jean, they basically go into space, and this is kind of spoilery, so if you don't want to know what this is about, you know, jump further on in the interview. But bottom line, this is in the 90s. It takes place in the 90s. Charles Xavier is getting real full of himself after the last X movie, which was X-Men Apocalypse, which was not very good either. The X-Men are not as hunted and hated as much as they were previously. So Xavier's starting to really feel kind of like good about himself, and he's kind of pimping his students out, doing these rescue missions and trying to keep the public all happy that, you know, he has a special connection directly to the president. So he's really kind of feeling himself. So he puts them literally in danger, and Jean winds up getting literally possessed by this cosmic force of energy, and it throws her powers totally out of whack. She's way more powerful than she's ever been, and she's becoming a danger to people around her. The problem is that you've only had this new actress in this position for the last 2 movies. And she hasn't even been that much of a focal point in those 2 movies. So it's not like you are deeply, deeply invested in whether she lives or she dies. Very much unlike what happened with Iron Man throughout the Endgame, the traditional Marvel series, where you basically see Tony Stark from the first Iron Man movie all the way through Civil War, Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, his appearances in the Avengers movie. You kind of know who this character is. You kind of really either like, hate him, whatever. You're invested in him. Fox didn't stage it properly. You had too many different directors on all of their movies. There was never a consistent, coherent thought or plan like Marvel had with Kevin Feige running the show. He was the showrunner. So the movies, to a large extent, even the ones that were hit or miss, like Captain Marvel, for example, they fall into pushing the overall arcing narrative forward in terms of the characters, in terms of where the story is going, in terms of hopefully getting you invested in this. And X-Men, there was never any of that stuff there. I thought Dark Phoenix, being the last of the Fox X-Men movies, Marvel movies, they went out on a whimper as opposed to a bang. Right,
like if they had stopped with Logan.
If they had stopped with Logan, I would have been fine.
Yeah, and people would have thought of it that way. Like, oh, you know what? You know, I mean, one or two of those X-Men First Class.
First Class was very good.
Good, right? It was good. I mean, again,
there was 2. It was First Class, and the other one, which I thought was good. First Class was good because it really kind of repositioned the whole franchise. Yeah. The other one that I thought that they could have ended on would have been Days of Future Past. And that's the one where they reset the timeline and then they introduce all of the newer characters. If they'd have ended it there, I think that would have been cool. So either Logan or Days of Future Past, they screwed up with Apocalypse, and they definitely didn't do themselves any good
it was crap, yeah.
Right.
Well, anyway, so what the final thoughts on that? Yeah.
Final thoughts. It's, see it if you're if you're a comic book movie fan, it wasn't a total crap show, but if you miss it, it's not that big of a deal either. What I do want to get to is Godzilla.
Okay.
Were you a Godzilla fan? Like the King Kong, Godzilla, Monsterverse?
I wasn't obsessed with it, but growing up, we watched a lot of the Mothra and I mean, it was on TV, like channel, like in Connecticut, it was like...
It was channel 11 here.
Oh, channel 11 here? Okay.
Yeah.
It was, during the day, they'd play a lot of these Godzilla movies, and we would watch them, yeah.
Right. You had like Godzuki, and they were like... Godzuki was like the little baby Godzilla.
Yes.
And then you had, what is it, the one where King Kong fights Godzilla. Did you see?
I never saw that one.
Get the hell out of here.
I think I saw Mechagodzilla versus Godzilla.
Mechagodzilla. I forgot about that one. Oh, man. So if you like those movies, you're going to love this one. Also, it's very similar in certain tones to the like Pacific Rim, for example. Mm-hmm. Not as comedic as Pacific Rim, because Pacific Rim had some funny moments, or it kind of went over the top in certain areas.
Yeah,
but I think it worked. The first one, I think, really worked.
Somehow it worked, even though the logic of it is just absolutely fucking stupid. You have to connect your brain to. They build a fucking robot where two people had to be like twins to use it. It's fucking stupid.
It was,
but it was super enjoyable.
It really was. Like. Even the acting was horrible. Charlie Hunnam, whatever his name is, really just totally flat throughout the entire thing. It was almost comical in terms of some of the lines here. But it was enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And I think, to a large extent, Godzilla, King of Monsters, is similar to that. It's, if you go in wanting to see huge monsters just tear up shit, you're going to love this. Absolutely going to love this. Because they repurposed Godzilla. Godzilla is not kind of like comical like we did during the King Kong Godzilla, the King Godzilla versus Mecha. Not a big dude in a costume running around. Godzilla's kind of frightening. And so are other monsters who are in this. There's Mothra. There's Rodan. There's King Ghidorah. So like all of the old movie monsters, they've redesigned them for a new generation, and they're kind of frightening. And the story, for better or for worse, it's enough of a story that you're kind of, okay, I can ride this out.
Well, they keep making them, right? I mean, like there's been every couple of years, for a while.
Well, there was Godzilla, there was King Kong Skull Island. There's this one, Godzilla King of Monsters. I think there's one more.
There's this Bryan Cranston one. He was in the beginning.
That was Godzilla, I think.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
So that one, they're creating what they're referring to as the Monsterverse. So the next one that they're supposed to have is going to be King Kong versus Godzilla. So they've been building these 4 movies up, and I suspect they've been like. I have to check what the box office figures. Like none of them have really done crazy.
They're no home runs, but they're all right. Yeah.
They're solid. They made solid money. So this is them kind of building up towards this new one. Definitely worth seeing. It's going to be interesting what the next movie is, where you have King Kong fighting Godzilla, because Godzilla is going to eat King Kong alive. I mean, he's firing like nuclear breath. Right. Kong is basically just a big gorilla.
Yeah.
So, definitely worth seeing. Special effects, visual effects, I thought were on point throughout. The story itself, it's there's enough of a story there to keep your interest. Better positioned than Pacific Rim. Not as illogical as that. The only thing that I have an issue with the Godzilla films is that you have like this one group of people who think that Godzilla and certain monsters have returned to balance the equation kind of life. Like you have like all of these negative, because we've treated the planet negatively. We've set off nuclear bombs and stuff like that.
It's an environmental message. It's like wrath of Mother Nature.
Right. And so Godzilla kind of is a response to fixing some of the other monsters. he's our protector.
Right.
And yeah, I'm not with that. I'm like, you know,
a little too lofty for a Godzilla movie.
Just blow these fuckers up already.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing is, like, that's, you know, it's not that I don't really like Godzilla. It's that you know, those were B movies. Those were at best, and you know, they were great, really great for what they were.
Did you never saw the very first one? Did you? The one with Raymond Burr from the 50s.
Probably not. Yeah.
You need to see that, because that's actually probably the best Godzilla film to date. Way better than the one that they did with, what is it, Matthew Broderick and Jean. Where he's tearing up Union Square Park and stuff like that.
It's a taxi cab and Godzilla's mouth, and there's little Velociraptor baby Godzillas. Ugh.
This was better than that.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, just they, you know, you have these talented people who are asked to make like a $200 million fucking Godzilla movie, and they gotta be rolling their eyes going, this fucking movie was never meant to be a $200 million movie. What the fuck are we gonna do with it? So they do their best, and
they did. From a visual effects standpoint, they destroyed Boston, you know, which is cool, because I really fucking I hate Boston. Absolutely.
Anyway, well, okay, so
I'm a Yankee fan, so you know I have
to. It's New York. This is New York. Right. But yeah, thumbs up. Check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth. If you like monster movies, absolutely check it out. But let's get to the one that I really want to talk about.
Okay, yeah.
John Wick 3.
Ah, yes. Big fan. I'm a big fan. But I've seen 1 and 2. I haven't seen 3. So
here's the only problem that I have with all of the John Wick films. I'm gonna start up negative, because everything else is, I'm just gonna roll with it. Episodes 1 and 2 of John Wick literally happen one after the other. He's gone through, in those first 2 movies, he's been shot, he's been stabbed, he's been punched, beaten, thrown off, hit by cars. This is all happening within the space of like a week. John Wick 3 picks up probably 10 minutes after John Wick 2 ends. At the end of 2, they're giving him a head start before the contract goes live on him and everybody comes to kill him.
Where apparently everyone in New York City
is a murderer.
Is an expert murderer hit person. Everyone, including
the bums.
Especially the bums. Like Lawrence Fishburne is like
King of the Bums,
yeah. King of the Bum assassins.
So this picks up 10 minutes after the last movie. He's still beaten up, broken, bleeding. Him and his dog. He has no longer the access to the services of the Continental, that special hotel, which, you know, became an issue in 2. So he's in bad shape. And it picks up from there. Let me say that if you are a fan of gun movies, if you are a fan of martial art movies, fighting and techniques, they do not disappoint. You could tell that my boy Keanu has improved over even what he did in the previous movies in terms of the level of skill, the cool stuff that he's doing with the gunplay, with the sweeps, migrating from different, hand-to-hand combat to grappling to kicking. He's basically really done. They trained him well. And the other people who they bring in, and it seems like a lot of people want to be involved with this franchise. Halle Berry is in it, and my God, does she kick ass. I got a thing for Halle Berry, as most dudes do. She, especially the fact that she's like 52, 53, same age as Keanu, or right around that same age. They trained her extremely well also. So the action, you will not be disappointed. If you can release yourself from the logic of the fact that this picks up 10 minutes after the second movie, and that the entire 3-movie arc really probably takes place over less than a month. There's no way on earth any man could go through that much damage or punishment and still be competent, functioning.
Even in part 1, there's that scene where he gets thrown like 2 floors down
on the glass
on his back, and they show him hit. He just sits there for a minute. You're like, oh, and then he gets up. But yeah, it's. But I definitely, it is that the tone of that movie is calculated to a point where you just kind of buy it. Like it is a comic book universe in its tone, and it's pretty great that way.
The only thing, another negative I'll say about John Wick 3 is that the action is so constant from the start. There becomes a certain point where you're almost like, this is too much.
Yeah, you can't, you get numb to it.
Right.
You need some downtime, I think.
Right. The pacing of it should have been changed. There was ways that they could have switched it up a little bit so that you got a break from the initial action before going back into it. I mean, because this is two hours of just nonstop, just on the go, fighting, killing, you name it. And there's Mark Damascus was in it, Halle Berry, the dude who played Braun and Game of Thrones. Yeah. He was in it. Was it Ian McShane? I forget the brother's name who was in. He was in The Wire.
Yeah.
And
then Common is in it, or is
Common wasn't. Common wasn't.
Oh, he got killed in 2, right?
No, well, he didn't die technically.
Oh, okay.
He was seriously injured. He had the knife in his heart. So if he showed up 10 minutes later and this thing, I'm sorry, that's just no.
Let's go again. No,
right?
No.
Yeah. But it was really from an action standpoint. You won't be disappointed. I almost want to go see it again, and I probably will. Just because there was so much happening at the time, it was almost information overload. And they leave open, not even the possibility, they're leaving open the door for John Wick 4. So seems like this is going to be just kind of like a general cash cow franchise for Keanu moving forward.
Was this similar to the first and second in that it looked to be the big bulk of it was practical fight scenes in real environments with a lot of real stunts?
Yes.
Okay, see, that I think right away people respond to that. That's why I responded to the first one and the second. Obviously I like the first one better than the second one, but you immediately are drawn to some of the well executed tactics, martial arts or whatever, gun tactics or whatever.
They had SWAT dudes who reviewed some of the training that he did, and they were just like, whoever trained him well. So he looks like he knows exactly what he's doing. I've seen martial artists who've looked at him switching from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Russian Sambo to judo throws, and he's going from different techniques to Aikido throws. He's going through so many different styles and switching very seamlessly. Whoever did the fight scene choreography was on point. It was well done, but my only negative towards this is just some of the logic behind it. The fact that literally everybody in New York and throughout the world, it's like the world is populated with contract killers.
Right, yeah.
The man has been doing this movie. This conflict has happened over the period of maybe 3 weeks to a month.
Right.
And it was just so much action that you almost had to take a break. I would like to see where they're going to take this next, because I don't see where they can really up the action.
Right. They're going to need a bit of a cool down.
Or something else has to happen. Whether somebody else and that was what was nice, was that Halle, to a certain extent, came in and played a complementary role to him, to Wick. But I don't know how they can go any further from this. because with the practical, this was all kind of like live action practical effects stuff. Where do you go? It's like
yeah. It's tough too. The fourth movie is typically not a good idea. You know what I mean? It's usually not. It really is not. And usually the third ones loses steam. Depending. But even some of the, I mean, Indiana Jones 3 is like one of the best third films I could think of.
What movie?
Indiana Jones Last Crusade. I think is one of the strongest third films.
Yeah.
But, fourth films, oof.
Third films, my favorite third film is The Lord of the Rings.
It's
Return
pretty
of the King. Other than that,
pretty hard, man.
That is.
Even Return of the Jedi was kind of like, nah.
What do you think about the whole Star Wars? Have you watched all of these?
Yeah. All the new ones.
Are you excited about this last one, which is supposed to be the third movie of the?
Oh yeah, that sort of trilogy, if you want to call it that. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I didn't hate the last one.
Oh, I hated it.
People really hated it because the way that Luke Skywalker went out. I didn't. I didn't.
Went out
hate
like
it.
a bitch. He went out like a sucker. It's not Luke.
It's. I totally understand.
Tom is such a film snob. For all the viewers out there, Tom really doesn't like superhero films. He really
I like the Nolan ones. Okay, so well, I thought Rogue One was the best new Star Wars film.
I would have to agree with you.
So I don't. So in that sense, I don't want to say I don't care about the other ones. I do. But
I think like Rogue One because everybody died at the end. I think you were just kind of like, holy snap!
Fuck 'em. No, I
It caught everybody off guard because you were like, oh shit! They spent a whole film building these characters.
Pretty cool characters.
Really cool, extremely cool. Better than the ones that you had from the second trilogy, Finn and all of them. And all of a sudden, they're gone.
Rogue One struck me as a film that put everything that it could on the table in the sense that
and then kicked it over.
They created these very interesting characters. They put everything they could into it. It had a beginning and the middle and an end. It never felt like they were posturing for another film.
Right.
And to me,
they cared about them.
I think whoever did Rogue One, I think they tried harder than any other film.
I agree.
Because it really was, sort of balls to the wall. Let's just try to make a good film. Let's try to make this one film good. And we're in a hole already because it doesn't have any fucking... doesn't have Luke Skywalker or Han Solo. It doesn't have any of that shit. We're already deep in the hole. What can we do? That's why I like that one. There's something...
I liked it because you cared about the characters, so when they died, even the robot, you were like, oh man, that's messed up.
Yeah. But, the truth is they could do a prequel. There's always a way in Hollywood.
Yeah. It was better than Solo. Did you see Solo?
Sallow? 100 Days of Sodom? That wasn't what I expected.
It was trash. Oh my god.
I didn't go. I'm an Indiana Jones fan more than a Star Wars fan, so I didn't go in there with that level of baggage. I thought, is it a good film? No. Was it a steaming pile of shit train wreck? No, I didn't think it was that bad. It just was. Yeah, I'll tell you what bothered me more was that stupid fucking train heist from the...
It made no sense.
The other... Yeah.
That was from Solo.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a stupid train heist. I'm sorry, the casino heist from the one...
Oh, yeah. From The Last Jedi.
From The Last Jedi. That casino heist plot line, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like
all of a sudden they find this code hacker, this amazing code hacker, and... They
fucked that up. But that aside, I still didn't hate it as much as other people hated it. But
I hated it. I hated everything about it.
But Solo, I didn't. I just was.
Underwhelmed?
Yeah, but it wasn't as bad as everyone said. But I'm not... Han Solo's not... He's your hero. He's not my hero.
I wouldn't say Han Solo was my hero, but I enjoyed the character. And I thought they just did the whole friggin' franchise a disservice. With every film except... Well, the first one, which was... what was the first one where Rey shows up. But bottom line, all of them, I think, were just subpar. Or very derivative of the original trilogy.
I fucking remember episode 1, 2, and 3 of fucking Phantom Menace.
Right.
And so when Force Awakens happening, I was like, this is not bad. Well, that's all people wanted, was something to get behind a little bit. I still remember how fucking bad those prequels were.
They were.
So I seriously give slack to the new ones. Because you know how fucking bad they could be. Well, what do you want them to be? What could they be?
They had Leia force projecting through the void of space. It was oh my man, they just... I'm done with... it's hard for me to say that. This new movie that's coming out in, I think, December, I really have zero interest in seeing it. I'll see it. I know I will, because, well, I'm a film whore. But there's, like, no anticipation. There's no real kind of, like, oh, I'm psyched up to see this. I could really almost care less. And I was wondering, because you mentioned that you're an Indiana Jones fan, what do you think about the word that Harrison Ford said that Indiana Jones 5, because we talked about 4, Indiana Jones 5 is set to start filming shortly.
What about the fact that they're going to do it?
Yeah.
Well, part 4, I think, drove me to tears, I think.
Oh, I
was in the movie theater, and when the animated, when the cartoon chipmunks, and then the cartoon monkeys, and then the cartoon ants, it broke my heart. Like, it actually... I was so sad. I was depressed. And because it was stuff you didn't have to do. Why did you add that? You know, like...
Did you see the South Park...
Yeah. It's like him basically getting raped. Yeah.
Well, it was like the Jodie Foster movie. The
Accused, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they basically... George Lucas, Spielberg basically are raping Indiana Jones in the same way that they had on the Accused with Jodie Foster. On top of the pinball machine.
Oh, it was... Anyway.
That's how I felt. I was like, man, you really just destroyed...
Oh, because I was thinking about it. I was like, you know how they made a Phantom edit, I think, of the first 3 prequels, and it's like, you know, you took only the good scenes?
Right.
I was like, I wonder... Indiana Jones is so important to me. I was thinking... And I kind of hate this. I hate that fans are so arrogant that they think they can re-edit. So I'm fully aware of how hypocritical it is that I had this instinct to want to recut something that someone else did, because I actually don't think it's respectful. But...
They just disrespected the Indiana Jones character so much. I didn't care.
So bad. But then I looked at it and, like, there's almost no good scenes. There's like one little motorcycle chase on the college campus
with Shia LaBeouf,
which is kind of sucks. There's just no... There's like one shot of him running from a temple. There's like no good scenes. There's a lot of films where... Matrix trilogy, for instance, part 2 and 3 sucked. We all know they sucked. But there are good action pieces. There are
elements of 2 and 3 that were... 3 sucked. I'm sorry. But 2, there were some amazing action scenes that... I'll still check it out. I can't watch the 4th Indiana Jones movie.
It's unwatchable.
And Indiana Jones, I almost studied archaeology.
Because of Indiana Jones?
Yes. I lost my mind after the first movie. You can ask friends of mine. I walked around New York City. I still got the wide brim hat.
Nice. Fedora.
I still have it. And a whip. Now, keep in mind, I'm 6'2", bald-headed and black now, running around New York City with a fedora and a fucking whip. The fact that I didn't get shot by NYPD is amazing.
Yeah, that's a super fan there.
Oh
yeah, I loved it too, man.
And I cried though with that fourth movie when he was in the protected himself from a nuclear blast by jumping into the refrigerator. I was just like, really?
I just the Crystal Skull theme. It's like even before they started that movie, the Crystal Skull thing was a hoax. Like, it's a public hoax. Those things weren't real. So, they're typically, Raiders and then Last Crusade were based upon actual artifacts, And in Temple of Doom,
that was crap.
You can say, look, I like Temple of Doom.
Really?
I think the age that I saw it, I was younger, and I didn't realize. It's kind of it's very offensive, actually. The action sets were so good. The bridge, the runaway train cars,
the jumping of the train cars. They didn't die. It was. That's what I loved about the first the Raiders, is that it was realistic to a standpoint.
Until the power of God.
Well, yeah, until that
Nazis,
right.
It worked.
Cool.
It all worked.
Fuck them. They're Nazis. You know.
Yeah.
But up until that point, everything else was pretty much realistic, or movie realistic at least. That second one where they were doing stuff, it just like it took me out of the movie because it was so different than the first film. The third film, they kind of came back, and I enjoy that for what it is.
The Connery one, right. I think it was very strong.
Right.
Look, I can't tell you why I really like Temple of Doom. I just do, and for its flaws, I think I was young enough to see it to not realize some of those flaws. But this fourth one, it's just a whole level of laziness. Like, it was just fucking lazy. Like, did they even go to those fucking the forest? I mean, it was a CGI forest.
But that's why I'm worried about the fifth one. And I'm like, at this point, I'm sitting there, I'm hoping that they redeem themselves, because Harrison Ford, as far as I know, doesn't have any money issues. It's not like he's hungry for a paycheck. I'm hoping that he does right by the character, and I wonder if he wants to kill off Indy like he did with Han Solo.
He might want to. It's not a bad move.
So that no one would do it again, because they were talking about Chris Pine playing him.
Mm-hmm. He's like, no, I'm the guy.
Right.
Yeah, but I think honestly, I'm fine with that if that's what they want to do. I mean, the funny thing is, they kind of did all the variations that made sense. They had young Indiana Jones and all that stuff. They
River
already,
Phoenix.
Yeah, man. They kind of did all that shit. So,
like, what, you gonna have old man crotchety Indiana at this point?
I thought I would love. They could have done it with 4, and the thing is, like, they had such a good opportunity and they squandered. I thought it would be funny to see like a cranky older Indiana Jones who just fights really fucking dirty. Because remember in Raiders, he was doing all these throwing sand in people's eyes and shit like that. I'm like, why wouldn't he fight even dirtier as an old man? Just like fucking get tired and
kick him in the balls.
And fucking just
bite their noses and stuff. I don't know. Do a Rick Grimes.
Yeah, like,
bite his throat
look
out.
at that, and then shoot him in the back. Like, it's all nasty. Like dropping grenades down fucking hallways and just nasty. Just old, angry old man, like Death Wish nasty.
Which really falls in, because Harrison Ford is kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it would work.
Why is he so pissed off? He's rich. He's famous. Oh my!
I don't know.
I still love him, but he's.
Did you ever hear Mark Hamill's impersonation of Harrison Ford? It's so good.
Really?
It's just like, hey kid. It's just it's so deep and I'm Harrison Ford. Anyway,
that's all I got, dude.
I'm glad they're doing something with it with Harrison Ford. and Spielberg, and I think because Disney is at the helm, they will require a certain level of quality. They will probably require them to go out to some real sets and have some real fucking props and, you know, interact in real situations. Whereas the Lucas thing, like, holy shit, I think it was just all shitty sound stages, and it showed, you know.
It's not like Disney's hurting for money after this whole Endgame thing.
Yeah,
they made like almost $2.7 billion.
Yeah, and I think that's the state of the industry right now. I think in order to penetrate the market, you have to throw like $1 billion at advertising so you can make $2 billion. And so that's the studio system. That's the game we're playing right now. So for the indie filmmakers, the thing is, you know, we were talking about this. As much as Amazon and YouTube suppress payment to independent content creators, you still can do the paywall, right? You could have a movie and charge $4 for it,
right?
So you can't say that the independents don't have a chance. They have a chance. I don't know anyone who's made that work. You know, maybe the Angry Video Game Nerd has his stuff behind a paywall. I paid for that, so I paid the $4 or $5.
But what about? Remember the comedy special that before Louis C.K. became a pariah. Right. Remember that comedy special that he did where I think he charged like $5 or something like that.
Yeah.
And he made money hand over fist by distributing it directly on his own.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible for a lot of filmmakers, once again, after they build their brand?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like get famous and then make money, right? That kind of feels like the only way it's going to work now,
right?
And that's a bizarre concept. You know what I mean? It's like, or get famous first before you make money.
There are some exceptions to that. There's a couple of people in the publishing industry. One was this writer named Amanda Hocking. She wrote kind of like the vampire fiction type, similar to like what you saw in Twilight. Mm-hmm. She charged like $1 for her books on Amazon. She sold ebooks, and she made over $1 million just selling small books on Amazon like that. And she got so famous to the point that she then got a deal, I believe, with Penguin Publishing, because she said the marketing and all the time she spent marketing and all stuff was just too much. You know, it's because you do hear those stories from time to time. So I would be really curious to dig into how she made that work. I just don't know. I don't know how she built up that base. You can pay some money out of pocket initially to get some traffic. I mean, not fake traffic, but I mean, you're paying to advertise on other sites and stuff like that. But ebooks was just kind of like, there's no initial really huge upfront cost.
Then I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, you know, where did she go to college? Did she go to Harvard? Does she have a bunch of rich friends? Does she have influence from, you know, certain people? I don't know. She may have none of that. The thing is, I guess I'm saying I'm not saying it's impossible. More than ever, I'd actually like to look under the hood of that and see how that worked. Someone who's got nothing, no name, nothing, sticks a book on an ebook on Amazon and becomes a millionaire. Dude, you got me. I mean, who the fuck would even review that? You know.
I think it was just because of the low cost of it, the genre she was specifically in. Most of us would drop $1. I dropped $1 for an audio book on the way over here to the podcast.
Well, yeah, that's true. If it's you're right.
You won't even think of it. If it's like
I bought a what's it called? Forbidden Archaeology book. And it was
why?
It was it was all these things, all these archaeological finds that they can't date and don't make any sense.
Huh.
Like this hammer they found is like 10,000 years old. It doesn't make sense because it's made of steel, and like this. They found this box,
Time travelers.
and it's like, well, it prays into my conspiracy theory, and I liked it, so I spent a couple bucks. So that is true. Okay, so I get that angle, right?
Right.
It's a very specific market,
and it's a price appropriate.
Yeah.
$1.99. Most people are like, man, whatever. Don't even think about it. Especially if you can buy it off of your smartphone, tablet, computer. You just click, boom, it was done.
Well, I don't think dollar movies is actually a great idea. Dollar features, but I don't think they even allow that on Amazon. I think it's $2.99 the minimum.
Really?
I don't think. I love a fucking 99-cent
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a 99-cent category, I
haven't seen a 99-cent movie since college. There was a $1 theater in our town where I went to college, and it was probably for about a month they played Silverado.
Oh, in the theaters. Oh, wow.
The theaters. It was the Apollo Theater in Oberlin, Ohio. And I think it was almost like a month. They had Silverado. And my friends and I, we went almost every night to the point where, like, we memorized all the friggin' lines in the movie. That's another movie.
Why not? It's before the internet.
Absolutely.
See to that, or go home and watch the fucking 4 networks or whatever.
We didn't even have cable then, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm an old fuck.
Me too. At least you look fucking 10 years younger. Anyway.
How long we been going?
I don't know. A million years. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Tom Seymour.
Thanks once again for listening to me as well. Your other host, James Richardson. Hopefully we'll do a couple more of these before the summer's over.
Yes.
But thank y'all for joining us on this little film journey.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Mm-hmm.